So, people, I, DB Blades, have forged some things. Now, I know what you're thinking. I've talked a lot of shit about blacksmiths in the past, and I still will because I think it's funny. But I put that aside for a night and I forged some things out with my mate. So my friend's been basically setting himself up with a kind of a poverty blacksmith setup. He's got himself a homemade coke forge, some homemade anvils, and some Bunnings hammers, which he rounded off to make into forging hammers. And I essentially went there last night, had some beers, had some fun, and we forged out these bad boys. So basically they started life off as chunks of Sub-9 tool steel from my cookery project, which we basically welded onto some rebar, and we flattened them out and made them into, well, basically flat bananas. My forging skills are pretty shitty, so it's essentially ended up as, whatever the steel ended up as is what it's going to be. Now, I did get some video of me forging. I did film it all on my phone though, so the quality is not so great, and we were both kind of drunk. So it's not the best thing in the world, but it should be mildly amusing. So I'll roll that footage real quick. I hope you guys enjoy it. And then when we come back, I'm going to start cutting these things up, and we're going to make some knives out of it. Enjoy.
Alright. Well, that is hot. Hot! Organised as usual.
Totally, mate, totally. It's a very thought out operation.
Oh, God, I can't zoom in. Oh, this is the one. This one's not finished.
I'd call that close enough.
Looking good.
Grind the rest of it out. To the very last bit, we fucking melted it into two little pieces.
That's cool.
I know, I didn't even think it would be that hot.
That's fucking melted. Look at it. It's in bits.
I know. Like what? Steel would have to melt well over 1,000 degrees.
Between 13 and 1500, depending on what steel.
Out of that little fucking coke forge, which hasn't even got coke in there. Charcoal, really. Fucking hell. Alright, so I guess we only have 3.
That's cool.
So we have 1, that's the first one I did. That was the biggest bit, it kind of looks okay, kind of Kiridashi shape. Next one, we have a tactical banana. The third one, we have, I don't know what that is. That's like...
TV special.
And this one, we're not going to talk about that.
That's so cool. Can you get a close-up of like what we've done to the steel?
Oh, it's not going to want to focus, but it's just all pitted and...
This is called learning to forge.
The next day...
Alright, it's not liking it. Turns out my bandsaw blade is much more fucked than I thought it was. So, unfortunately, we are going to use the angle grinder. So, it's grind time. Now, normally I do this with a tool rest, but because these are forged, basically none of it's flat in any way. So, we're just going to have to eyeball it and go pretty damn fast on the grinder to make sure we blow through all this forge scale. Because this stuff is actually really hard. I'm pretty sure that's why the bandsaw wasn't liking it, because it just wasn't cutting. So yeah, we'll just trim these up real quick, get them down to their final shape, and then we can go on to bevel grinding. Alright, so we have these all cut out. Now we've got to center punch these to drill some holes. Which is always a little bit odd, especially when you can't really see what you're doing with the camera in the way. Okay, so after fucking up almost every drill bit I own, we got some holes in there. Turns out this forge scale is actually really damn hard. And I just noticed that this guy here is a little bit on the piss. So we're just going to apply some heat and persuade it to go straight. Okay, so time to grind the bevels. Now, normally I'd use a really fresh belt, something with a lot of teeth in there that, you know, grinds really easily. Because the mill scale on this stuff, it's just so hard and so thick, I'm going to be using this bad boy. Now, this is a belt that should be in the bin, really, because it is just trashed. It's got very little grit left to it. It's got areas of it that's been burnt, and it's not really good for much, except for grinding through this surface scale. Now, the idea is I'm going to use this belt to kind of knock off the 90-degree edges on this thing and hopefully increase the life of the next belt I use by getting rid of all the nasty, hard-to-grind stuff first with this thing. I don't know, maybe a waste of time, may not be. I figured it's worth it because belts definitely cost money and yeah, they're not cheap. So I've ground all three of these things, and now it's time to stick in the oven back here and normalize them real quick. And that's just going to reduce the stress in the steel and make it less likely for there to be any warps, cracks, or any nasty shit like that. Also, off camera, I went ahead and cleaned up the outside of these things with a 120 grit belt, and I also deburred everything, so hopefully that should go even further to stopping any cracks or warps or any nasty stuff like that from happening. So, all I need to do is chuck them in the oven, get them nice and hot, and let them air cool pretty much. Okay, so now they're out of the quench. You can see these things are all just rock hard. The file's not even biting into it, which is what you want. So now we can chuck these into the tempering oven and kind of temp these things back. Alright, so off camera, I had a bit of issues with the scale on this thing. Now I thought I could just buff it off and it'd all be easy, but unfortunately it's a little bit more tenacious than that. So I've chucked it in this vinegar over here and it's been in there for about 32 hours, which is a lot longer than it normally should be. But I know this acid is at least 4 years old and it's been used a couple of times, which is why it looks so appetizing. And this is also not the strongest acid to begin with, so I figured I'd leave it in there for a really long time and hopefully it should eat away at the scale and make my life a whole lot easier. Now normally I'd grind this all off. It'd take like 2 minutes, be really easy, no stress. But I kind of want to maintain all of this nice forging texture you see here. So hopefully the acid should let me keep all of that and still take off all that nasty scale. And it seems to be coming off pretty nicely actually. You can see it just basically peels off right now, and once I buff that it should be pretty good. So there we go, we got all three of these finished up. You can see we got some hologram bevels on these things. Basically all of these are hologram because that just helps me get a thinner edge up here with such thick blade stock, which is what you want for better cutting performance. The bevels on all of these are about 400 grit equivalent. So that just gives that really nice sterile look, which contrasts nicely with the forged texturing. And speaking of the forged texturing, I actually went over all of these with a buffer, as you saw, and just kind of hit the high spots with the buffer. And that gives you that sort of a polished yet forged look. So you still have that sort of reminder of where the knife came from, but it sort of fits with the rest of the knife, if you know what I mean. And I mean, obviously these things are a little bit of a novelty item. These are, I wouldn't really consider them hardcore users, but you could definitely do some work with them. I mean, they've got rounded spines on them, they're all nice and polished up, nice and comfortable. So yeah, just a kind of cool little experience for me. I have forged some knives in the past, but these are the first knives that are actually, you know, forged and finished. I've done some random forging for some Damascus and stuff, but never anything I finished off, never anything that became anything decent. So this is the first time I've really forged some knives and finished them up into sellable products. Don't know if I'll ever do it again. It's not really something I'm all that interested in because it's just not the kind of knife maker I am, but it's definitely a fun experience and I might do it again just for shits and giggles every now and then. We'll see. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. If you haven't subscribed, please do, and I'll see you in the next video.